Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. It happened 4 years ago today. And I think we are all still like Zara Phillips, sitting back in our pews wondering, now what's happening now? I just love that gift from the royal wedding. And it really just captured the entire spirit of kind of what happened to that wedding and just kind of basically the disaster that Harry and Meghan's marriage really has been in terms of their time in the public spotlight between, their time as royals and then Megxit and then post-Megxit life. It's really been one long train wreck for Harry and Meghan. And really we can see this almost from the jump as soon as they got engaged. And it really set up, some of the things they said, some of the things they did, really set them up for kind of failure within the monarchy. And now they're kind of failing post-monarchy as well. They have all these deals lined up and yet nothing really to show for it. So anyways, guys, today is the 4th anniversary for Harry and Meghan. So happy anniversary to you guys. Maybe you'll make it another 4. I only ever gave you 5 years, but maybe you'll make it beyond then. But I'm just going to take a look back at all the strangeness, all the weirdness, all the signs that we could see that the marriage between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just was not going to go well. And so I'm just going to go over a couple of these points with you, starting from their engagement all the way up to the post-wedding, and just show you some of the things I saw that were kind of interesting and things that we just all kind of remember and just leave us like Zara Phillips going, oh, what's happening now? So guys, if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany and we talk about everything related to royals. So I do a lot of commentary on what's happening within the royal family. We also do news, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We'll do kind of it all here. And so if you guys want to subscribe, that would be great. And also I'm heading to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in the next couple of weeks. I am super duper stoked for it. And I have a huge plan to put together, and I'll be announcing that, or maybe I have announced it by the time this video comes out, kind of giving you guys some of the details of what I plan on doing and some announcements as well. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And like I said, today is Harry and Meghan's 4th wedding anniversary, and I just thought I would go over some of my thoughts about their wedding because I had strong opinions when it happened, and I still have strong opinions now. So let's go back first to their engagement. Obviously, they announced their engagement in November, and they came out and they did it in Diana's sunken garden in Kensington Palace. It was outside, and we just got instantly kind of a theme of what Meghan Markle's fashion would be as a royal, which was just a little messy. She kind of went with generally unstructured coats, which I think can sometimes look sloppy if not done well. And we also saw that her shoes didn't fit right. And that was another thing that people noticed about her fashion. But it was really the engagement interview that I really think turned some people off of them. And it was really kind of easy to see why. So in their engagement interview, Meghan famously said, well, I just wanted to know if he was nice. So she didn't care that he was a prince. She didn't care that he is worth millions of dollars, that she could live in a palace, that she could have servants, all this stuff. She really just wanted to know if he was nice. And that was warning flag number 1. I actually was not a fan of Meghan from the jump. She just immediately struck me as a woman who was desperate to make it in Hollywood and never could because she didn't have the talent. She immediately struck me that way. I really honestly thought when the news of them first came out, because they were talking as if people knew who Meghan Markle was, and nobody knew who Meghan Markle was. And it kind of came out, and I was just like looking through this and going, I bet you she just put her name, tossed her hat into the ring to just get her 5 minutes of fame, because she just immediately struck me as one of those type of women. And it turned out to be true, so that was a little bit of a shock. But then over time, I was like, you know what? My assessment of her was accurate from the word go, so I feel pretty good about that. I'm kind of bummed I didn't start a channel then because I go, look, I saw it. But anyways, so Meghan and Harry, like that she was explaining that, she didn't really care anything about him. All she knew about him is what she knew from him. And she also said that she didn't know anything about the British monarchy. And again, those kind of, is he nice? I didn't look him up. And also like, well, I don't know anything about the monarchy. We don't have the same thing in the States. It's just like my BS meter went up to like 11. Because I'm like, that's just not true. There is a pretty good contingent here in the United States that is very interested in royals. They're on the covers of People magazine all the time, Us Weekly, even more now since Meghan married in, because she just is kind of one of those people I think who thrives on drama. So she constantly drops things to get attention onto herself. And so that's been kind of a staple of her career as a royal. So I just really did see this kind of from the jump. So it's just interesting that she immediately started on this kind of false narrative, portraying herself as this naive woman, even though she's pushing 40, even though she's had a successful TV show, she's a worldly woman, but she was pushing this kind of young, naive, oh, I don't know anything type of image, which I think she's tried to perpetuate throughout her marriage in this victimhood, and it just doesn't really wash because, again, she was not a Diana type. Diana was like 19 when she married into the royal family. You know, Meghan was 36, like the same age Diana was when she died. So you just cannot make those comparisons. And so immediately, I think some people, there was a warning flag there, and there should have been, because it just does not make sense. Like, you know, even if we go on a Tinder date or anything like that, I don't really use Tinder, but if you use those kind of things, like, you know, oftentimes you do like Google people, like anyway, going on a date, Google somebody. So when she just said that, it was just like, I think you're lying. And what's really sad is that I think Harry bought into it. Now, the second kind of big warning flag is that Meghan was going to be a pricey addition to the royal family. And how did we know this? She wore a $75,000 dress during her engagement photo shoot. Yes, $75,000 for a dress that was partially see-through with applique in certain areas to cover her modesty. And you look at these pictures as well, and I think it's really kind of sad because Meghan is definitely setting herself up as the focus, and you could just exchange Harry for any old bloke in these pictures and nobody would give a darn, really. Like, it would be the exact same. Even some of the ones that didn't get officially released, Meghan is very much like, she's the star. You can tell, like, she wanted the attention on her in these pictures. And so Harry's almost really an afterthought. You can exchange him for any guy, and you know, they're the same pictures because really all the focus is on her. And when you look at William and Catherine, you know, they had very formal wedding engagement pictures. But I think you can also tell that there is some informality and that they're partners. There's no one really jockeying for attention. But in Harry and Meghan's pictures, you can definitely very much tell that the sole attention is on Meghan. And I think that was by design by her. She told him, well, I want it this way. And a lot of people said, well, they kind of look like perfume commercials, like they were overly stylized. And I don't know if they had to go back necessarily, or they were kind of, the Queen said, okay, you can do these, you know, artsy pictures that you want, but we need something also that's more formal. And so there is at least a picture that we've seen at a distance that is a more formal kind of royal portrait, which is what, you know, kind of the Queen and the rest of the royal family expected. But again, it comes down to what really aggravates people is that $75,000 dress. And when it first came out, how expensive that dress was, it was like, whoo-wee. And then the story didn't become about the pictures, it became who paid for that dress. And I actually was talking with somebody on Instagram about this, and, you know, this person said that, you know, Meghan paid for the dress. We have no evidence that Meghan paid for the dress. In fact, the palace said it was covered privately, i.e. Harry and or Charles paid for that dress. That's basically what they're saying. Because Meghan, again, she was 7th on the call sheet for suits. She was not a huge star by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I imagine she was making good money, but not, you know, she's not making Friends level money on suits. Neither were any of the other Suits cast members. And that she was so far down on the list means that she just wasn't going to get a big paycheck and wasn't really essential to the show, which was right. Allegedly, they were writing her out for the last season already because the guy who she had the relationship with on the show was planning on leaving, and they really didn't have anything else for her. That shows you how, expendable her character was, is that they didn't need her. They didn't feel like it was worthwhile to keep her after he left. If she was a good character, if she was a good actress, and she wanted to stay, they would have set something else up for her. But that they decided, you know what? Best to let you go on your way. It's pretty telling. And I don't think she had any prospects after that. So again, though, like that dress, obviously already she's costing the Monarchy 75 grand because she wants this haute couture engagement dress for pictures. We've never seen that dress again. Like if she wore it again for a royal event, maybe with some, darker meshing around the top, I think that would be fine. But that we've never seen that dress again is very kind of questionable and just left people kind of not with a great taste in their mouths, because they're like, Well, is Meghan taking advantage already of the wealth that the monarchy has, and she's using it for herself? And so that was a huge kind of another warning flag that things were not going to be easy with Harry and Meghan. And now we get to the family drama. Now, obviously we all know that only Meghan's mother attended the wedding, and supposedly her father was supposed to attend as well. And we just don't know if that's true. Like, I don't know if he ever had a ticket. I don't know if there was ever any plans, because she's never introduced her father to Harry. And there's always a huge question mark as to why. Because really, while they were dating before the engagement was even announced, they should have gone down to Mexico or flown him up to California or Toronto or something like that to meet Harry. The fact that they never did before the whole debacle shows that Meghan was, I think, being cagey with Harry from the jump about certain members of her family. And I don't think it was necessarily because Thomas Markle was allegedly going to sell her out or anything. I just think, and this is what a lot of people have posited, is that Meghan kind of sold Harry a basket of kind of misinformation about her childhood, growing up, her, her experiences, that she came from nothing and she became this huge star and stuff like that. And I think people were worried. I think she was worried that her father would give Harry a different impression. She said at one point that, she paid for her college, and her father says, well, I actually have the receipts. I don't think we've seen them, but he alleges that he has the receipts showing that he paid for her college. He paid for all of her private schooling. So the question is, who's telling the truth here? So I think Meghan I don't think had a great desire to introduce Harry to her father. And then kind of the whole debacle happened. So there were some pictures that showed up of Thomas Markle, and he was, looking at a photo book of England. He was getting measured for suits, and as it turned out, a paparazzi had approached him, said, let's set up these pictures so people can get a better impression of who you are. And of course, Meghan distanced herself from him after that, and then supposedly he had a heart attack, and then he went to Los Angeles right before the wedding and could not make it. And Harry and Meghan then just, basically wrote him off. And there's a lot of questions again about how all this came to be, and were Harry and Meghan kind of, complicit in allowing, kind of these negative impressions to exist of Thomas Markle? And was it all a giant plan for him not to attend anyways? Did Meghan ever want him to attend? Because she seemed very, very comfortable walking herself down the aisle. And so it just got everybody wondering. And then, you get to the wedding itself, only her mother attended. Apparently she has no other family members, even though she has siblings, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, all these sorts of things. None of them were at this wedding. And so again, it was just like this drama right before the wedding. Of course, Charles stepped in and walked her part of the way down the aisle. And allegedly, this came out kind of recently that, he offered to walk her down the aisle. And then she's like, well, can you do it halfway? And so you just even wonder then, does she ever want anybody to walk herself down the aisle? Because she's such a self-confident feminist woman that she wanted to walk herself down the aisle. And it's like, well, why not say that from the jump? So again, it just raised a ton of questions about Meghan Markle's history, who she is, who her family is. And, some of it you could say, well, maybe her family members are the awful human beings she's portrayed them as. Or, you got to wonder too, have they been set up to fail, or is she purposely keeping them away from the royal family for reasons that are maybe potentially nefarious, like that she didn't really want them to tell Harry a different story than what she told him? So it's just kind of an interesting thing that happened, and just another kind of warning sign that Meghan was definitely problematic, much more than the monarchy probably intended. And then once you get to the wedding itself, obviously this happened in May. It was a Friday because they didn't do it. No, they did it on a Saturday, excuse me, because Kate and William's wedding was on a Friday, and it was a bank holiday. Harry and Meghan's wedding was on a Saturday. It was in Windsor. And when the guest list and people started to arrive, a lot of people noticed that George and Amal Clooney are there, and Oprah Winfrey is there, and you just wonder to yourself, I'm like, why are they there? Because again, if you look at Hollywood, not to the certain extent the monarchy is, but it's kind of circles of influence, and based on how high tier you are in terms of being a B-list versus a C-list versus an A-list, you run in different spheres. Now, Meghan was a C-list or below. She was a no-name actress on a mediocre show that just didn't have a ton of attention on it because it was on the USA network, and it doesn't have even nearly the presence of Psych, which started airing a couple years before it and has really gained this kind of cult status. And all the people who are on that show have gone on to do, maybe not gangbuster things, but are kind of well known in their field and have done at least a decent amount of shows and stuff. And so Meghan definitely was just not in that boat. And all of a sudden you have George Clooney there, and it's like Meghan Markle would have never ever met up and been friends with George Clooney without Prince Harry being in the picture. Never. He would never have given her the time of day because she wasn't important enough to give the time of day to. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that she would have never been to Cannes. She was never have been to the Oscars, to the Emmys. Like, she was not going to go to these big events where she could run into somebody like George Clooney and cultivate him as a friend, because she would have never been invited to these big events. Same with Oprah. Would Oprah Winfrey cared all about Meghan Markle without Prince Harry? Absolutely not. She was, again, a low tier Hallmark actress, without even you even look at somebody like Candace Cameron Bure, who's kind of also in that Hallmark sphere. She's moved on to a different network now, but she's done a lot of Hallmark movies. She's not a fantastic actress, but she has this huge cultural impact because of a show like Full House that she grew up on. Meghan doesn't have any of that. And so it's like, well, how in the world would Meghan have met any of these people? She allegedly even invited Reese Witherspoon, who classily said, well, I don't know you, I'm not going to your wedding. And so it just kind of seemed to raise a lot of red flags with people. It's like, is this a giant networking opportunity for Meghan? Because it's like, again, supposedly Meghan and Amal maybe met through a hairstylist or something, but Amal's a human rights lawyer. Meghan was, and again, it's just they would not have run in the same circles, period. Now, obviously, Serena Williams was there, and she could be considered A-list as well, but she and Meghan met through an alternative event, and I think athletes are kind of different than, certain Hollywood types. So it was just strange, and I just think immediately people's kind of eyebrows went up, going, they're just coming because you're marrying Harry, and she's actually, I should say it just raised a lot of eyebrows because she's asking people who she probably met once or twice and didn't invite members of her own family. And then we get to Meghans Dress. And so when I knew the royal wedding was coming, I was not a fan of Harry and Meghan. I actually did not even want to give it the views. So I actually kind of slept in, even though I wanted to get up and watch it. And what I thought was interesting was that, I just really wanted to see what title Harry got, because I was just curious, what title would it be? And you look at Meghans' dress, and she walked out of the limo, and I'm just like, oh, honey, that's just, because I was kind of looking forward to her dress. I was just curious what it would look like. She's been touted as a style maven and everything. I wasn't really impressed by that point, but I was just, curious what it would look like, because, royal wedding dresses are kind of, a step above the normal wedding dress. And I just looked at it going, oh my gosh, that is the most boring dress in the entire world. And it doesn't fit and it doesn't look good. And then you get the veil, and the veil is so ridiculously long. What really bothered me about it is that it would bunch at times, and she got it caught going around a corner, and she was like, it was like pulling, there's so much of it that's like pulling her head kind of to the side. And you look at that whole thing and you go, why? And then she explained, and it probably came out the day of their wedding, that, she did this because it represented, she had all the Commonwealth flowers on her veil. And I'm like, girl, it's the Commonwealth at its core. Why countries join the Commonwealth is not only is it shared history of great, the United Kingdom, but it's really about joining an economic agreement. You get onto the Commonwealth because it gives you economic benefits. It's a better trade deal with the UK. That's why you join. And so her saying, well, I knew my family, my in-laws would appreciate this. And I'm sure many of them were just sitting there scratching their heads, because the last time a royal wore something like that, it was Queen Elizabeth's coronation outfit had the flowers on it. So that gives you kind of an indication of where Meghan's mind was and kind of her ego level at that point, that she was kind of emulating the Queen. And it was really just an excuse to justify this super duper long veil, which I don't think did her any favors. Some people said she kind of looked ghostly. And honestly, and this is just my thing, I appreciate it when women who are getting married for, you know, the second time, especially, you know, since she's in her mid-30s at this point, I think it would have been nicer to have it be an off-white color. And I know I'm just a little bit more conservative. That's just me. But I just think I would have had kind of more respect for the look if she went with an off color. I think being bright, pristine white is just a little much for a second wedding. And again, it just felt very ostentatious for a second wedding. And especially for somebody, you know, who's sixth in line. Obviously it was Harry's first marriage. Who knows, we'll probably get maybe a second marriage at some point. But again, it just didn't look that good. Thought her tiara was kind of lame. You know, you can't pick and choose, although she tried which tiara you can get. But I just don't think it was the best one. And then she also, like, her hair fell apart. I was just disappointed in her whole look because I thought her makeup was boring. Like, the whole look was dull. She kind of went with the no makeup look, but because everything else about the look was so bland, it just all looked bland. Like, if she had some really nice some chandelier earrings on, or, you know, some pop of color or something, it would have made it at least look more interesting. There was nothing interesting about her look at all, except for the veil, which only looked good on the steps of the church, and then it looked terrible for most of the rest of the time. And her dress also wrinkled, her hair started falling out of her bun thing. And so it was just overall a very, very disappointing look. And I think some people also saw it too, as, you know, she went with Givenchy as well, which signaled that she wasn't going to really play by the royal game when it came to fashion, because usually royals pick British design labels, not just British designers. Meghan kind of went with Givenchy, which is a French house, but justified it by saying, well, Claire Wright Keller is, you know, she's British, and so ergo it was designed by Brit. But I feel like that's splitting hairs, and I think people were just a little bit turned off by that, because it's an opportunity to highlight British fashion, not French fashion. Because even if, you know, Claire Wright is a British woman, she is representing the legacy of a French fashion house. And it's like, aren't there other British designers you could get? You know, you could even highlight somebody who's new, interesting. But no, she had to go with, I felt like, you know, haute couture, and then just bland haute couture. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was bad. And next, you had the reactions in the church. Now, the sermon went on quite a long time, and and Catherine, you feel so sorry for Catherine and Zara. Catherine was like 3 or 4 weeks postpartum. Zara Phillips was like 9 months pregnant. And so, you know, they're both, I'm sure, tired and uncomfortable. And, you know, Catherine's kind of getting used to she has 3 kids now, which kind of puts more pressure on you. And we'll get to kind of what happened with that later. But, you know, Zara Phillips, you know, she was leaning back in the pew at one point because, you know, she's 9 months pregnant. I'm sure those pews, which are, you know, several hundred years old, are not all that comfortable. And she's just like leaning back and she's going, like, you know, she's looking there going, is this really happening right now? Because the Brits are very, you know, kind of had this dry sense of humor. And I love Princess Beatrice has her eyes kind of wide and leans down going, yeah, do you see that? And then Catherine kind of gives, you know, Camilla the side eye, and they're all just, you know, they're trying to be respectful, but it was just not really their kind of, you know, thing. And it went on kind of long and was kind of overly, it just, you know, you could see the culture clash right there. And so that was kind of a sign that, you know, maybe family relations were not going to be great. And you could also see there just wasn't a ton of smiling faces on the Windsor side. And Meghan's side of the aisle beamed. They were like thrilled. They're like, oh, this is so fantastic. This is wonderful. And the Brits are kind of like, okay. And you could see, I felt like a lot more joy when Eugenie got married, but just not a lot when Meghan did. And so I think there was just, already they just kind of knew that we didn't find out till later that there were a lot of other things happening behind the scenes that were raising a lot of red flags, but you could just tell we're not enthused by the whole thing. And it just kind of became one of the most gift-worthy royal weddings in history, because everybody kind of had a little bit of reaction and they were all just kind of, okay, this is weird. And then the next kind of red flag, I think, you know, looking through the whole wedding, what really struck me kind of when I watched it again and stuff is Meghan Markle's strange, calculated, trying to be serene expression, and that it never changed. She had this subtle smile on her lips, like, you know, and she would laugh and demurely at the appropriate moments. And it just gave it the feel of a show. It was a performance. She is acting a part. And you just watched her during that whole time, and it just felt so fake to me. Because it's like, you know, I expect you to look nervous. You know, Catherine and William looked nervous. Catherine had different expressions throughout her wedding, but Meghan's expression almost never changed. And I think that was a sign for the rest of her time as a royal as well, because when I was looking, especially when I was able to write articles more, because I'm doing the video component now and the video takes longer, I don't do as much writing as I used to, but I really found it very tough at times to find pictures of Meghan not smiling. Like, even when everyone else is miserable, like at the Fiji event, everyone else has severe expressions on their face. She's just grinning as if nothing's wrong. And you know, that is part of it, but I appreciate what's nice about royals is they are human and they're not actors. And ergo, you get real expressions from them. If they're kind of frustrated, sometimes you can see it on their face. Like, there was an incident, especially in Poland, where Catherine looked very irritated, like right before they went to this reception. Obviously, she schooled her face when she got there, but you know, there's times where you can tell that, you know, maybe they're a bit bored, maybe they're this, maybe they're that. And Meghan's just that her expression never changed, just always struck me as just utterly fake, contrived, and just that everything was a performance. She's putting on a show. So who is the real Meghan Markle? I don't know, because you just couldn't connect with her, I don't think, because it looked like to her that this whole thing was almost beneath her and that she was elevated above everything. And you know, she was an actress on a mediocre show that did not have a large audience, and then yet she's acting like, you know, she's done a performance in front of 100 million people, which she never ever has. So again, just the whole thing was, I think, just a bit too much and just really turned me off. As the royal wedding went on, you know, there's just kind of definitely some weirdness with Catherine and William, and you can see it especially in this picture. So this was a picture after the wedding, and Catherine has what I kind of call the Meghan grimace smile. I've seen this grimace smile from Catherine 3 times. It was this picture, the christening of Archie, and standing with Harry and Meghan and William at a church service before, I think, Remembrance Sunday or something. And she just has this grimace smile, and it just was like, at that point you could already tell, and she's like leaning away from Meghan and stuff, and you can already tell that things are not going well between what were, you know, dubbed originally the Fab Four, and that things were, you know, kind of in a bit of a pickle at that point. And you can see that, and looking at the wedding as well, you know, Catherine and William, you know, held George and Charlotte with them at the top of the stairs while Harry and Meghan left. They didn't do that at Princess Eugenie's wedding. Now, part of it is that the family members come out with whoever was marrying. So when Eugenie was marrying, it was just Beatrice, you know, Sarah Ferguson, and Prince Andrew who came out in the front of the church, the church at those steps. Whereas Kate and William, even though their kids were bridesmaids and page boys at that wedding as well, that they went out the side entrance because that made more sense because of their family thing. But still, the other bridesmaids went with, you know, kind of led down the stairs, I think, that way. And Kate and William kept close hold on Prince George and Charlotte. And you also look as well, I thought this was kind of interesting, is that, you know, another red flag you could say, and maybe I should have put this earlier, but I'll say this now, but that Meghan's friends, you also could tell, were benefiting from this wedding. And you can tell this by that it was the mothers who led their children up to the steps. Now, in Eugenie's wedding, it was Lady Louise. So she was kind of the master of the bridesmaids, or kind of mistress, you could say, and she was managing all the kiddos. And usually, oftentimes as well, it's, you know, the nannies and, you know, those sorts of things. But that it was the mothers that came in, and you could tell that Jessica Mulroney, Meghan's best friend, was walking as she was trying to do this. She was really wanting her Pippa Middleton moment, which thankfully did not happen. But you could tell, like, these women wanted to be the center of attention a bit, you know, or they wanted their piece of the attention. They wanted their moment. And I think that was a huge kind of sign as well that, you know, the people Meghan hangs out with, you know, like hangs out with like. And so I think all of Meghan's friends are kind of in the same kind of user style group. So they use each other, they promote each other, and that's kind of who they are. And so you kind of look at that and you see Harry and Meghan, and you just, you know, that Meghan kind of allowed that to happen. And it wasn't just like the nannies, or it wasn't just an older kind of bridesmaid person who could kind of lead the kids up, but that, you know, it seemed very clear that Jessica Mulroney wanted her moment in her heels, walking up the steps and hoping somebody would care about her behind. And thankfully that didn't happen for her. And then again, I just get back to the pictures, and they were kind of dark pictures as well. And I think it was the room they took the pictures in. I think that was the style Meghan was probably going for, because I think Eugenie's pictures are in the same room and it's brighter. And I think the darkness just kind of lends itself to the whole wedding, which was, there was kind of a, I hate to say a darkness there because I don't mean a darkness in like a super bad way, but there was a cloud hanging over it. And this is kind of the, it was all kind of signs, all this lead up and what we saw happen at the wedding. As it turns out, there was a whole undercurrent of things that were going wrong from the jump as well that we didn't hear about until about 6 months afterwards in October. So we found out that, you know, Harry was kind of demanding things of Angela Kelly. Meghan wanted a particular tiara, one with emeralds in it. What eventually people decided, you know, have assumed was the tiara Princess Eugenie got, and, you know, kind of, you know, was yelling at staff members going, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets, and was, you know, going after Angela Kelly, who is a very good friend and the dresser of Her Majesty. And, you know, Her Majesty actually had to get involved. The Queen had to get involved and tell Harry, essentially, Meghan gets what she gets from me, and that's it. You know, the Queen had to interfere to kind of put down Harry because he was getting so pompous and arrogant and demanding of people, which he just never really was before Meghan came into the picture. And then we also had the bridesmaids fiasco. And again, I've heard variations on this story, from it was as innocuous as Catherine wanted the children to have tights on because that's part of royal protocol. Catherine is very, very aware of that. And she's also very aware that the pictures of her children will live on forever, and she wants them appropriately dressed, appropriately put together. And so she kind of, she's very aware of that and wants to always present her children in the best way possible. And she also knew just simply that, you know, her little girl might get some blisters on her feet and she might get uncomfortable. And Meghan, you know, didn't want that and just kind of refused to do that. But we've also heard kind of some extreme that it was Meghan was very disparaging towards Charlotte, had the other girls kind of join in on that. And then also, you know, was very irritated that Charlotte grew out of, I guess, initially her initial dress fitting and the dress no longer fit. And allegedly Meghan, you know, made the insinuation that Charlotte was fat. That's just a rumor I've heard on Tumblr. No idea if that's correct. But you have two kind of extremes. So obviously something bad happened, and Catherine, you know, apparently was the one who cried. Obviously she was a couple weeks postpartum. This was like 10 days before the wedding. So Catherine crying is not a surprise, but Meghan, of course, in her Oprah Winfrey interview, tried to reverse course on that rumor and said that it was actually Catherine who made her cry, which doesn't make any sense because every rumor has always pointed to the fact that Meghan made Catherine cry. The only person who believes that Catherine made Meghan cry is Meghan and her stands. That's it. Any rumor we had to the contrary, no matter how extreme it was in terms of what actually happened, it was always Catherine who cried. And Catherine apparently did kind of like, you know, maybe it was kind of a bust up between the two and went over to Meghan to apologize. Just to, I think, kind of just do the mature thing and said, well, maybe we were both just a bit emotional on this day. You know, I'm sorry that I was maybe being a little bit difficult or something. Just to be like a normal human being. And Meghan allegedly took the flowers that Kate brought over and threw them in the trash in front of Catherine, I believe. And so that just, again, another sign of how kind of toxic things had gotten. And, you know, there were other allegations that Meghan, you know, hated the smell of the chapel and wanted a fragrance from the Soho house in there. And so there was just a lot of rumors of very, you know, they came to her with a menu item and they made this particular dish and Meghan didn't want eggs in it. And then they gave it to her and they did not make it with eggs. And then she was telling them, no, I taste eggs in here, and being very demanding and arrogant about it, to the point again where people had to intervene, and it was just bad. And you know, the palace people, they work, you may think that, you know, people who work at the palace, they get these huge salaries. They really don't. Kind of, you work for the palace because you are passionate about the monarchy. You want this kind of role that you can't get anywhere else. And so you work there as more of a privilege. It's kind of like a government job. You are not paid an outrageous amount of money. And so these people work for it because they're passionate about it. So people treat them, there's kind of a respectful relationship between the two. That Meghan kind of spat on that was just, I think, very, very shocking to the monarchy. And again, I don't think, I've read this before and I can't remember quite where now, that they're talking about the monarchy just didn't even know what to do with her because they never dealt with somebody like Meghan, who just seemed to want to cause trouble and drama. And that was just, in general, what has happened the entire time since Meghan became royal. It's all about drama. It's been toxicity. It's been arrogance, egotism, narcissism, all these different things that finally led up to Megxit in 2020. And I think the monarchy is better for them leaving. You can see it in, I think, the Commonwealth service. Catherine and William looked very, very relaxed because that was kind of one of their first kind of big things, trying to get back into this normal swing of engagements. And I think there was kind of a joy and an enthusiasm for not having Harry and Meghan there anymore. They just became so toxic, so aggravating, so, just draining, I'm sure, to be around and to have to deal with, that everybody was just relieved when they left. And you can just see that in the lead up to the royal wedding. There were just so many warning signs, so many things that went wrong, and so many kind of demands that, the monarchy was just kind of stuck with the situation where they didn't really know what to do. And Harry wasn't making it any better by kind of going along with every single one of Meghan's demands. And so it's just kind of, it is sad to see that Harry could not be more supportive of his brother and the wider royal family. But again, I think everybody's glad Meghan is gone, and that, unfortunately Harry is gone by awesome, as well. But I think everybody is glad Meghan Markle is essentially left the royal family. And really the seeds were sown from the jump that she just didn't really want to be in the monarchy. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to get into the upper echelon of Hollywood. That's why she invited those Hollywood people there. And that she really didn't care about the monarchy, didn't care about respecting the history and culture and traditions of the country she was marrying into, which I think is incredibly sad. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to kind of give you my reflections on Harry and Meghan's wedding, just kind of looking back, things that just stuck out to me and continue to stick out to me about their wedding. And let me know what you think. Did you watch it, or were you like me that you kind of tried not to because you didn't want to give it views? And I also dispute the fact that Harry and Meghan's wedding was watched by more people than Catherine and William's, because although Meghan being American probably brought some more people on, I think for the broader world, the future King of England is much more interesting than his brother. But I could be wrong. Harry was still very popular at that point. I don't think they would get those numbers now. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll have more news about the Jubilee. I can't wait to go, and I will see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.